but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned.
I mean, let's try to think beyond the legend, put it in real terms. I mean, what would he be like today? Some kind of out-of-control psychopath?
It's 1980, and somehow you had a very narrow-minded idea, which was to, quote-unquote, rip off Halloween and translate that into a successful film called Friday the 13th. For us horror fans, this was the powder keg that ushered in the slasher golden age of the 80s. It was only logical for a sequel to be conceived. So many others were inspired by that first film. Hell, if you had a couple of actors, a camera, and a couple $1,000, you too could put together a horror movie. And that's where Friday the 13th Part 2 comes into play. Enter director Steve Miner, tasked with keeping the slasher crown firmly placed in New Jersey at that camp. The question is, would people return for more slasher gravy goodness, or would they cancel their trip and punk out like Paul when he got beat down twice like a fucking bitch by Jason Voorhees?
Let's get down to brass tacks.
Welcome to my Why You Hate video series, dissecting films, the good and the bad of them. Check out the Why You Hate playlist for a great horror discussion, and then check it out again.
You're cocked, locked, and ready to rock.
It's not going to hurt, I promise. Isn't that right, George C.?
It is not in the file. It is not. You son of a bitch!
I'm going to go over some reasons why some fans have issues with Friday the 13th Part 2, and I know this will be a very strong debate in this community for the lovers of this film and the detractors of it. So get ready to watch a bunch of camp counselors doing what they do best, which usually involves being naked and making out.
Have you seen my silhouette?
See how ridiculously ineffective a cop can be in a horror movie. Follow the journey of one of the greatest final girls of all time. Don't get used to Jason's look, because let's be honest, it's not as great as the hockey mask. Don't get too disappointed that Paul can't fight and utterly failed as a boyfriend. And try your best to not want to also slingshot the back of Terry's derriere. Here are the reasons why you hate Friday the 13th Part 2. Number 1. Story. If you thought that the original Friday the 13th didn't have a great story, then just wait for the way Part 2 totally jumped the shark. And I'm talking about the type of jumping the shark that is as crazy as the romp on a boat that has no way of leaving Crystal Lake and getting into New York, Vancouver, or the connection to the Evil Dead with relatives that have no freaking reason to be introduced after 8 films. Steve Miner, the associate producer on the first film, stepped in to direct this film and the next one after Sean S. Cunningham opted to not return to the director's chair. Tom Savini was offered to return to do the effects, but he chose to do The Burning instead. And let's also be very clear, The Burning is an absolute horror classic, and if you haven't seen it, you need to. So let's just rip the band-aid off of this right now. The end of the original Friday the 13th, in fact, the whole movie is iconic and cemented in horror as far as I'm concerned, but the continuation of that film into Part 2 makes no damn sense whatsoever, and we will get deeper into that as the video continues, so sit back, get a drink, and enjoy. The idea of Jason going after Alice in the beginning is absolute banana pancakes. So Pamela was just on a revenge spree that didn't exist, and Jason was chilling out and eating whatever he could find around the camp. Think about this from those involved with Part 1. The plot of Part 2 absolutely shocked most people associated with the original film. Betsy Palmer, Tom Savini, and Sean Cunningham all have made public remarks about how stupid it was that Jason was alive the whole time. And if he were, then why didn't he just tell his mother that he was alive, which would have avoided all the murders in Part 1? Exactly. The whole backbone of part 2 makes no sense. Sure, you can piecemeal some logic together, but let's be real. There was no logic, no way to legit explain Jason, no Google Maps for him to find Alice, no trust, liar. And poor Alice. And I love Adrienne King with all of my heart. By the way, she gives great hugs if you ever get a chance to meet her at a horror convention. I got 3 hugs, man. Back to part 2. This film has one of the longest pre-credit sequences in cinematic history, nearly 18 minutes in some versions. So the film takes place 5 years after the first, which was set in 1979 according to Friday the 13th, the final chapter, meaning that this film takes place in 1984. During both summers, both the Friday the 13ths occurred in July, making this film take place exactly 5 years after the events of the first film. We see someone walking towards a house, and somehow Jason has become an investigator and found where Alice was living. I have to wonder as well if he was wearing the sack or was he just free-heading it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he would have stuck out like a sore thumb. Anyway, while Jason the bounty hunter is creeping up to Alice's pad, she's having nightmares, which is basically the recap of the finale of the first film. Now this was actually pretty smart to do. It made the connection to the first film feel real, and to be honest, I always loved the recaps of the Friday films. It was a way to get me pumped right from the start, and also caught me up in case I forgot something. Adrienne King revealed in an interview to Screen Rant that she didn't know that Alice was going to die until she arrived on the set. She stated, quote, "I actually said to them that I would do whatever they needed for the sequel. I was theirs, and I was very happy, and I never got a script. Didn't even get a script. Then there was a car that picked me up, and little did I know, but I get up there and the crew's almost gone. Everybody had gone. I didn't realize, but they had actually filmed the movie already," end quote. This is beyond not cool and shows how awesome pioneer final girls of the 80s didn't always get the respect that they should have. To be quite honest, I was sad that Alice was not a part of this story, and I wish that it had turned out different for Adrienne King. Number 2, characters. The characters in Friday the 13th Part 2 are a fun group of counselors. Everyone has their moments, and very few were graduates of Genius University. Vicky was trying to put the moves on Mark, and Mark was a pretty cool guy. Unfortunately for Mark, though, he suffered at the hands of Jason's machete, culminating in one of the most iconic deaths in the franchise. Let's just be real. How many steps did he fall down? Did you count them? Jeff and Sandra sneak off to check out Camp Crystal Lake. They were regular young kids. Another iconic moment with the shish kebab kill. And then you had Scott, always hawking Terry. I mean, you can't blame him one bit, but damn, buddy. Terry kept the camera on fire with her hotness. Let's just all be appreciative of Kirsten Baker and how she showed us all the beauty she possesses and why 80s slashers gave us important lessons of life. In the scene where Terry is swimming at night, the first notes of the iconic Jaws theme are played and implemented in the score. It's a nod, obviously, to the famous Spielberg movie. Stu Charno played Ted, the sequel's comic relief character, much like the original Friday the 13th's Ned, who was played by Mark Nelson. Then in Part 4, the final chapter, Lawrence Moneson portrayed another comic relief character named Ted. The Friday films consistently reused characters' names throughout the series. There were 2 Pauls, 2 Terrys, 2 Sandras, 2 Vickies, 2 Scotts, 2 Marks, and that's just from this sequel. There were 3 Tinas from parts 4, 5, and 7, 2 Robins, 2 Joeys, 2 Eddies, and an Ed. In Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, the character Rob Dyer confesses that he's hunting Jason for murdering his sister Sandra, and most fans caught that and believe that he's talking about Sandra from this installment. He is. Ginny Field was named after Virginia Field, who was the production designer on both the first 2 Friday the 13th films. Amy Steele would star in another slasher after this called April Fool's Day, which was a fun horror movie, and if you haven't seen it, you really should. And of course, Ginny was the absolute standout in this group and a big delight in every scene. Played by the legendary Amy Steele, Jenny used her understanding of psychology to take on Jason and ultimately save her life. A final girl in the best sense of the title. She was smart, interesting, very real, beautiful, and full of courage.
To know that I did one of these films where they get all these women in that are so vulnerable, and to be the one that people think was strong and intelligent, it just feels good.
There's always the last damsel in distress who summons up the courage to fight back.
And then I guess with my character, it was pretty great because somebody who was strong enough to fight back and kind of stay present in the face of danger. And I was so young that you didn't create a whole other life, because I think that what was really called for was exactly who you were as a person, to bring that to screen.
Number 3, The Kills. With Tom Savini unavailable, they turned to Stan Winston to deliver the gore for Part 2. Unfortunately, Winston was forced to leave due to scheduling conflicts, making way for Carl Fullerton. Within 5 years, Winston won an Oscar for his work on James Cameron's Aliens, and his Stan Winston Studios would go on to be responsible for the design work on the Terminator, Alien, Jurassic Park, and Predator series. After a decade in gore, Fullerton ascended to the A-list of Hollywood makeup artists with Glory, The Godfather Part 3, Silence of the Lambs, and Philadelphia. The kills were quite inspired, and they kept the tone and excitement of the first film, but there was definitely a feeling of missing Savini. Even with that said, the shish kebab kill, and especially Mark's kill, were very iconic. Vicky's death was a good reveal of Jason up close, and her demise, well, it was a gut punch, literally. A shot of the infamous double impalement was cut to avoid the X rating, yet a gory still photo of this censored shot appears on the back of the video cassette box. The footage of the censored portion was finally recovered in 2020 from an old VHS of the gore shots that Carl Fullerton kept for his portfolio and was included on the Scream Factory Deluxe collection of the films. In the third draft of the screenplay, originally titled Jason, Terry's nighttime walk and skinny dipping scene is longer, and there are no cuts showing what other characters are doing. While she is still being watched by someone during the entire scene, it is not shown that he takes her clothes, but instead she sees it's gone as she walks out of the lake and goes into the woods, walking around and calling for Scott, thinking it was him who was messing with her again, only to find him dead, revealing that it was Jason who was watching her, and he grabs her from behind. There is a jump scare later near the ending when Jenny finds her nude body on Jason's bed, but it's not mentioned anywhere in the script what happened to her. This whole skinny dipping scene is iconic, and you can understand that. But what made it really good was the interplay that she had with Scott, when she's chasing him through the woods and eventually he gets caught up in the rope trap, and at that point you're thinking to yourself, she got him, he feels like an absolute idiot. And I thought that this was great because of the fact that when she stepped away into the cabin and came back, she found him dead right there hanging. It was a great scene, and then with her scream, chef's kiss. At around 1 hour and 3 minutes, immediately after Jeff and Sandra are killed, Ginny and Paul leave the bar and are passed by a man in a raincoat entering the bar. That was Bill Randolph, the actor portraying Jeff. He convinced director Steve Miner to let him do a run-through in the scene since no one would think of him since his character had just been killed on screen. There was a copycat kill of sorts in this film, and if you know, you know. Yeah, it's that one. Both this film and Halloween 2 from 1981 feature their villains killing a law enforcement officer with a hammer to the head, although Mr. Garrett in Halloween 2 is a security guard, not a police officer or a sheriff's deputy. Both movies were also released in 1981, this film in May and Halloween 2 in October. The body count of this film is 9, plus one character presumed dead, but it's unconfirmed. If you count the bodies from the dream sequence recapping the end of the first one, you can add 3 more to the total body count, which would bring that body count total to 12. Number 4, Jason. Jason in this film is dressed to look exactly the same as the hooded burlap sack killer from The Town That Dreaded Sundown in 1976. The only difference is that the burlap sack he wears only has one eye hole, and his shirt has a slightly different plaid design. Although Warrington Gillette is credited as playing Jason, in most of the scenes the character was played by stuntman Steve Dash. Gillette only plays the unmasked Jason in the sequence where he bursts through the window. Dash was upset at being uncredited in the role, as he has most of Jason's screen time. When archival footage from this film was used in the next sequel, only Dash is credited as playing Jason. During the scene where Jason is chasing Ginny, Steve Dash ended up falling on the pickaxe and broke his ribs. Another time he was knocked out, and another time Amy Steele actually cut his finger while shooting the ending scene where she fights him with the machete. He ended up going to the hospital, getting stitches, and then returning to work. All in all, when you think about it, Jason was good in this film. It's the first time that we see him in the franchise. He was stalking and showing craftiness. I mean, Sackboy came through when it counted, even though his existence is still a jump the shark moment. And yes, in a way, there is disappointment that the sack is a direct ripoff of The Town That Dreaded Sundown, but fortunately in part 3, we got what would be known as Jason's authentic look. Number 5. F***ing Paul. Let me be very clear about this. If your girlfriend is Ginny, and her life is in jeopardy by a sack-wearing killer, you better be ready to defend her. Paul was a decent character all the way up to the point when somehow he gets ambushed in the cabin by a person that is literally wearing the brightest color that you could wear in the room, which was dark, and that should have given himself away. But nope. Jason tackles Paul in round 1, and Paul loses pitifully. Round 2, he actually gets the drop on Sackboy and shows us all exactly what it looks like to be absolutely inefficient at fighting. You suck, Paul. I'm sorry.
And you blew it! You blew it!
Number 6. Finale. This is the type of finale that truly showcased the craftiness of the final girl. Ginny used her brain and saved her butt from certain death. Jason seeing his mother in Ginny was a great play off of the original. Paul comes out of nowhere, does absolutely nothing of consequence. Okay, he did make Jason take focus off of Ginny, so she could slice and dice. I'll give him that. The stinger in the cabin was also very effective, almost effective as part 1, and that's a huge compliment. Shout out to Muffin for surviving. Jason coming through the window looking all ultimate mongoloid was horrific, and Ginny's reaction was satisfying. Inside Jason's cabin, in addition to the severed head and clothing of Pamela Voorhees, there are 3 bodies on the floor: Terry, the sheriff, and the decomposing corpse of Alice. You can clearly see the ice pick still sticking out of her head, but she is otherwise unrecognizable, as even the clothes have rotted. Oddly, Pamela, who has been dead 2 months longer than Alice, has faced less decomposition, and her clothing merely looks worn and dirty. During the climactic fight between Jason and Ginny, Jason raises the pickaxe to block Jenny's machete swing. Amy Steele said that during the first take, the timing was wrong, and she accidentally hit Steve Dash's finger, causing him to have to go to the emergency room. Steve Dash has photos of him being treated in the ER in full costume, fake machete still stuck through his shoulder. After his finger was stitched up, he returned to set that night and insisted that they complete the scene. She said they simply put a piece of rubber on his finger and applied makeup to make it look dirty. According to director Steve Miner, the ending where Jason attacks Ginny through the window is not a dream. In this scene when Jason crashes through the window, the actor Warrington Gillette was actually hurt. He tried to break through the window, only it didn't break, and he ended up banging his head really hard on the glass.
We're fine!
Fucking hold dunk, po dunk, well then there, motherfuckers!
Amy Steele has stated that she found shooting the window scene was very difficult. The shot required 3 takes, and her frightened reaction is genuine. Because the shot was in slow motion, a high-speed camera was used, and every time she heard the film start running, she would tense up and get scared. Throughout the final scene, the mummified head of Mrs. Voorhees is noticeably an actress wearing makeup, rather than a fake head. The final shot is a close-up of the head, ending in a freeze frame before the credits roll. Originally, this shot ended with Mrs. Voorhees opening her eyes and smiling, but at the last minute, Steve Miner decided that this effect was hokey and cheapened the movie's impact. Good choice on that, Steve, because yeah, that would have been stupid. Originally, it had been intended for Amy Steele's character Ginny to die, but producers decided someone needed to survive. No shit. They loved Steele's performance and wanted to sign her up for part 3. Her agent told her not to, stating that she'd get better roles, and she chose to listen. Years later, she shared that she regretted that decision. While she did get a few other roles here and there, she largely left acting and instead became a marriage and family therapist. And unfortunately, this was one of the saddest things to learn about behind the scenes of Friday the 13th Part 2. I think Amy Steele had some really great charisma, and I would have loved to see her in other films more than the ones that she did star in. Just bad luck. Again, the early 80s was a tough time for actors in horror. I don't think they realized how much longevity they could have for a career. Nowadays, actors in horror understand that. There's a popular internet debate, though, concerning the fate of Paul. In the opening scene of Part 3, there is the suggestion that he does indeed survive the events of Part 2. During the opening scene of Part 3, there's a news broadcast that says there were 8 victims. Now, assuming all bodies were actually found, there were 8 on-screen deaths in Part 2. Terry, Crazy Ralph, Sandra, Mark, Jeff, Vicky, Scott, and the cop. This would imply that Paul does survive. Alice from the original film is not murdered at the camp, so she may not be included in the news broadcast body count, but Paul says that she quote-unquote went missing, so her body may be on the ground somewhere. I think we know where. As always, Roger Ebert famously hated the first movie, and this sequel was the only Friday the 13th film that he did a print review for. In his half-star review out of a possible 4, he stated that, quote, everybody in the audience imitated hoot owls and hyenas. Another girl in the film went to her room and started to undress. 5 guys sitting together in the theater started a chant, "We want boobs." He finished by simply penning, "This review will suffice for the Friday the 13th movie of your choice," end quote. However, author S.T. Karnick, editor of American Culture, wrote that critics simply missed the point that the Friday the 13th movies purposely focus on the background and motives of the killer rather than the victims. Therefore, the audience remains strangely unaffected when largely undeveloped and often innocent characters are killed, which is a formula copied to most other horror franchises. These films spoke directly to fears of increasing crime and social dislocation and provided audiences with ways to detach from these worries and conquer their fears of violence by laughing at it. At the end of the day, Friday the 13th Part 2 jumped the shark, but fortunately showed us a fantastic final girl, some fun characters, a couple of great kills, and the first on-screen adult Jason, and we as fans must deal with it in our own way. You have to ask yourself, did this film take the right direction for the franchise? Did you want to see Jason as the killer? Did you want some other way for it to have come together? That is a question only you can answer. As always, this video is not here to make you love Friday the 13th Part 2 or to hate it. It's simply a discussion to highlight the history and aspects of it, good or bad, with you, the viewer. So what do you think? Are you a fan? If so, tell us why. If not, let's discuss why you hate Friday the 13th Part 2. If you haven't hit the like button for more content, please do. If you're not subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and become part of this fantastic movie community where you'll never love and talk about movies the same. If you like this video, check out my other Why You Hate videos and other content, including live streams here, and I'll see you there. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.